Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to the audience who has joined us today on this bright morning. I'm Hema Madabushi, Principal, Pallavi International School, Gandipet, Hyderabad, and I'm honored to be here today as we come together for this panel discussion on quality assessment and technology with respect to new education policy 2020. Today, we are gathered here to discuss the NEP, which is one of the most significant reforms in the education sector in India. The NEP 2020 aims to transform the education system and make it more inclusive, holistic, multidisciplinary, and technology-driven, keeping in mind the changing dynamics of the 21st century. Technology has been a game changer, and we all agree to it, especially in the education sector. And the NEP 2020 recognizes its potential to enhance the teaching and learning experience, and the policy envisions the use of technology in various aspects of education, from digital content creation to online assessments for accurate outcomes. The implementation framework for technology-enabled assessments involves some key steps and considerations which I would like to emphasize here on this platform. The availability and adequacy of digital infrastructure such as computers, internet connectivity, software, and hardware in the schools or institutions where the assessments will take place or the teaching learning will take place is an important aspect. The potential of technology to create diverse and authentic assessment tasks for learners. It should be a user-friendly platform that supports various types of assessment tasks, such as MCQs or short answers, or for that matter, subjective questions. Must also provide timely and personalized feedback to students and provide the accuracy and efficiency of grading for every learner. The stakeholders must be trained, and it must also ensure digital privacy and digital security. Today, we are here to discuss the role of technology in assessments as outlined in the National Education Policy 2020. And it also emphasizes the need for a new and comprehensive assessment system that focuses on measuring the learning outcomes and fostering critical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills. The integration of technology in assessments is therefore the need of the hour. We have with us an esteemed group of experts and professionals with diverse backgrounds and perspectives who will be sharing their insights and engage in this meaningful discourse. I would like to introduce our panel members. Mr. Rajesh Dudu, Emerging Tech Leader, Senior Vice President, Tech Mahindra, and Global Business Head, Blockchain and Metaverse Expert and a TEDx speaker. Welcome, sir. Mr. Arpit Dugar, Head of Business, Next Education Dubai, co-founder, PracticeGuru.in. It's an online test preparatory engine. Mr. Andrew Nelson, Head of the School Racks Coimbatore, Apple Distinguished Educator, Google Certified Trainer, and Digital Learning Coach. Welcome, sir. Sri Charan Lakaraju, entrepreneur and founder of stumax.com, a student discovery platform. And we have Mr. Raghavan with us, business and digital transformation leader, President Lucas India Service Limited. A warm welcome to each one of you. And I also have with me Ms. Griselda Rose, Principal, Pallavi School, Kisara, and my Vice Principal, Ms. Meenu, Pallavi International School, Gandipet.
Hello, everyone.
Today's topic is an important one, and it is one that affects students, parents, educators, and policymakers in various ways. Throughout this discussion, we will explore the opportunities, challenges, and solutions which we can bring. We also hope to gain a deeper understanding of the complexities and nuances that support this topic. I encourage everyone, the audience here, to participate actively in this discussion. Ask thought-provoking questions on the chat box, which will be enabled in the Q&A session at the end of the discussion. I move your attention to Mr. Andrew Nelson, Head of School, RACS Coimbatore. Sir, good morning to you once again. And I would want you to share your insights on assessments, how they have changed over the past few years during and post-pandemic, and what are the tools which the assessments would be using.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hema. What has happened is, if I can take you back a few years, maybe, we were all going to school, we were doing our daily tasks, kids were happy, we were happy at school, and then all of a sudden we came to know schools are closed. There's lockdown, we can't go out. But we realized that teaching and learning has still got to happen. And that's where we came towards technology, and technology helped us in a big way. And we were doing our learning, we were doing our teaching through technology using various tools. And then all of a sudden we realized that, okay, it's time for assessments. So learning and teaching changed during pandemic, a lot of it because of going online. And what changed was the assessments. Now, there were a lot of changes that took place because of what we landed in. And fortunately, what we did as teachers, as schools, was in line with what is mentioned in the NEP. So a lot of us were kind of forced to do some of those things, were doing some of those things. So one of the major changes that took place was an increased use of technology-enabled assessments, such as online quizzes. We realized that till now, what was happening was we had all the students in a classroom, we had 3 teachers who were invigilating and checking, and we had 4 cameras on them, and all of a sudden we realized all these children are at home, and we still have to assess them. And we looked at these various tools. We shifted from the regular, normal so-called assessments to more of formative assessments, where we realized that it is time to see a kind of assessment where we can check them on various other skills, on problem-solving skills, on critical thinking skills, on real-world application of knowledge skills. And we also shifted towards an increased focus on assessing non-cognitive skills such as creativity, collaboration, communication. We realized that with the use of some of these tools, we could put students together and test them not just on what they can do alone, but what they can do as a team. So a lot of changes came in with going online because of pandemic. And also many schools have continued it. The good news is many schools have continued it post-pandemic also. So we're still doing many of those things, which is a good sign. Now, coming to some of the tools that we have, teachers have used, schools have used. Fortunately, at that time, I was not really associated with one school. I had kind of left that school, and I got into consulting with a few schools, mostly for digitization and technology integration. And being a Google certified trainer, so a lot of schools reached out to me. I could help them, but I now realize that I actually learned more from them than I probably helped them out, because I realized that I saw what these various schools were doing in their own little way and what tools they were using. And there were so many things that they were using, which I came to know. Simple things like Google Classroom, Google Docs were being used, which is like every school uses it. But these were tools that were being used for assessments, for online assessments. Google Forms were being used for assessments. Google Docs, Google Slides were being used for collaborative assessments, collaborative assignments, where kids were doing things together. They were not just answering the questions, they were doing more of research work. And they were doing a lot of these things where they were using online formative assessment tools such as Kahoot, Quizlet, Mentimeter, and the list just goes on. So there are so many tools. Many schools were using learning management systems, which were the most common one I noticed was Google Classrooms. There were specialized ones which were available in the market, which had a whole lot of features. So, using those learning management systems, many schools are still continuing with them and are still using them, which is a good sign, because that's the way forward now. So post pandemic, during pandemic and post pandemic, these are some of the major changes that we've seen in assessments, and some of the tools that uh, can be used or have been used as such. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. That was quite insightful. Yes, you're very true in saying that we learn while we teach. I think that's what we educators do all the time, right? I would now shift the focus to Raghavan. Welcome, sir, once again. And I really want you to share with us, is it possible with technology to create a more inclusive assessment to support diverse learners? And how would technology really enable these assessments to bring out the right learning outcome
Okay.
and the
Good morning.
desired result?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Hema. Good morning, all. I would like us to step back a little bit. Before getting into NEP. I would start with the premise of NEP, right? A holistic, inclusive, multidisciplinary, which is technology enabled. So what it means to me is like, I've been handling a lot of digital business transformations together and separately, all that. End of the day, the core purpose here, what we're talking about NEP, is education. Okay. So technology will be a tool. Technology will be a platform. Technology will be a vehicle on which some of these better methods will be delivered to the stakeholders. Okay, here the key stakeholders are not parents, key stakeholders are not schools, key stakeholders are the students. Okay, so I would start with, if I run a poll within this audience, and if I asked, Chat GPT, okay, at least everybody would have known the name. Many would know, okay, it's a novel tool. Some would know that it can be used in specific ways, and a few would know how to use it in a specific way. But about a year ago, we wouldn't have known this happening the way it is happening today. So I'm giving this premise because imagine children joining today in class 1 would be retiring sometime around 2077 and thereabouts. And between these intervening 50 plus years or 60 years, the skills required for them to kind of go through the career could be a job, career could be a business, career could be a combination of multiple things. They could be in industry, they could be in academia, they could be anywhere. But the skills required would be undergoing change. So NEP 2020 is an opportunity to provide the framework for continuous learning. So somebody very famously said, education should not come in the way of learning. And if you really look at learning is about the ability to be resilient, the ability to be continuously relevant, and the ability to collaborate with others. So from that point of view, to me, the inclusivity is the key. We are a very diverse country. We have multiple languages, multiple subcultures. We have, and more importantly, the neurodiversity, which is very, very important. So when we are using technology in assessment, are we going to copy paste the why we assess in the previous era into this technology era? I don't think we should do that, because the assessment so far prior to COVID was meant for an industrial society. Though India had grown leaps and bounds in the information society, but the education system, unfortunately, had been stuck in the industrial society. We were still evaluating students, and then we were still ranking students. And what it was doing was it was eliminating the possibility of integration. So there were these front benchers and the back benchers. And what are you going to do with the back benchers? Okay. And if you run a survey over a period of time, I'm sure it is most of the backbenchers who have started up businesses and who have succeeded and employed the front benchers. Okay, so if the education system is assessing for front benchers, then we are actually killing the entrepreneurial spirit. Okay, and then this system is also divisive. Okay, I mean, this ranking system doesn't integrate it, it kind of divides people. The third important thing is the neurodiversity has never been thought through in our education system. We still have special schools for people with special needs, especially children with special needs, and these are not available everywhere. I think it is a great opportunity to use technology and use technology to understand first what really makes an individual student effective in terms of his or her learning, and what is the learning preference of that individual, and assess that, and then educate what that person would like to get educated. Okay, so that makes the skills required in that person to excel. Right? That is uh, a TED talk I was listening to by Sir Ken Robinson of UK, and he was talking about George Harrison and one of his colleagues in Beatles were rated as very, very poor singers in their performing arts schools, Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts. That is half of Beatles who in the formative years were classified as no good, okay, by the music teacher. And later on, they go on to find the found a music troupe which is world famous. So, are we in that mode of standardizing everything and then trying to fit everybody into one particular standard, assess, and then divide, seclude, and then look for results, which are great for the institution? Or we are going to be inclusive, we bring in all the diversity that is possible and educate to learn, and that creates the real skills in the society which is required. So that's my take on the assessment.
Very true, sir. I think the responsibility of the teacher is even more when she uses assessments of learning, for learning, and as learning. So that's what NEP also emphasizes on. Thank you so much. I would shift the focus now to Mr. Rajesh. Sir, you have been a pioneer in blockchain and now metaverse is the in technology. I would want you to share some insights on adopting or adoption of emerging technologies, specifically not only for assessments, but for the entire teaching learning purpose as well.
Yeah, sure. Most certainly, Hema. First of all, good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me on this particular discussion. My observation has been over a period of time, with respect to education, there's always been a yin and yang of the intent and access. So earlier there was intent, there was no access. That's why a lot of people did not get into the educational pool. But now, with the advent of digital technologies, and as the previous speaker had alluded to, especially during the COVID, a lot of schools and a lot of educational providers have innovated on providing the access. So access is there, but is the intent is there? In terms of where is the intent with regards to the students. Now, let me bring in the context of national education policy. And to summarize NEP 2020, there are two main elements. One is the holistic development from a student's perspective, and the other one is in terms of the rigor of assessment from a Parak or an assessment perspective. See, in this entire scheme of things, the big question that needs to be asked is intent. And if there is no intent, you can have state-of-the-art tools from a perspective of providing the education and from a perspective of providing assessments. It's not going to help. And that's where the emerging technologies come into the play from a perspective of fostering the intent on the student side. So how do we do that? How do we promote that particular intent? The first one is gamification. Gamification of learning. Learning traditionally has been one way, wherein the teacher teaches and the student absorbs, assimilates, and internalizes. And if you compare this particular model vis-a-vis the lot of companies that got onto edtech model, whether it is Khan Academy or any other provider, you see that they have gamified the concepts to a great extent. And that gamification has brought back joy in teaching and also joy in learning. And that's what the emerging technology has enabled. And it's a continuum. There are multiple emerging technologies which contribute to this particular gamification, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is virtual reality, whether it is augmented reality. All three of these are coming together under the aegis of what we call as metaverse. We've recently took a school to the village in the remote corner of Maharashtra, where the students come to the school in a Roblox. And these students are very, very brilliant as far as their scientific knowledge goes, but they don't have the power of expression. And today, willy-nilly, the power of expression, the medium of power of expression happens to be English. So how do you bring those students up the learning curve with respect to the language of English? And we have enabled that using Roblox. Then there is other elements like machine learning, then chat GPT. Chat GPT has become an interesting component. Even in this morning, I was running my thoughts and comparing that with what chat GPT says, right? What is chat GPT's perspective on national education policy? What is chat GPT's perspective on Parak? And how does it compare with one's own ideas and one's own thinking on this particular thing? So these are the things which are there from an emerging technology. As far as the intent is concerned, fostering that particular intent to the students, so the learning becomes a lot more resourceful, learning becomes a lot more joyful, and it's not a stress activity. If you ask, they can spend hours together on video games, it's not stressful, but 1 hour in a classroom tends to be very, very stressful. That's because there's no gamification, there is no zeal that has been put into it. So the role of emerging technologies is to how do you bring back that zeal into the process of learning. Now let's look at from an assessment perspective. How does emerging technologies play an important role? That's where the single source of truth comes into the play, which is provided by blockchain as a technology. During COVID, we have not only seen fake news, we have not only seen fake medicines, we have also seen fake certifications which are floating around across the education system, right from the elementary education system to the secondary education system to the senior education system. So how do you ensure that when people come and put forth their credentials, they are actually are the real credentials, and there is no doubt in those particular credentials? And that's where an emerging technology like blockchain comes to a play. We have seen already leading institutes like IIM Ahmedabad and the others have already got onto this particular bandwagon. There's no need for an institute like IIM Ahmedabad to get onto this bandwagon, but they realized in terms of what is the need of the hour, there could be misrepresentation of credentials in the marketplace, and those misrepresentation could be attributed to a leading institute like IIM Ahmedabad. So they got onto the blockchain bandwagon where they're validating their certificates, more so the part-time certificates. The full-time certificates, you can still validate very easily. But if you look at the part-time certificates, when you have humongous amount of programs varying from 1 month to 3 months, delivered physically and digitally, and a number of students going through those programs, you will have a diversity of certificates hitting the market. So how do you validate those certificates? How do you ensure that they are original, they are not misrepresented? That's where the blockchain as a technology plays. So it's a holistic kind of an approach, as I said before, to foster intent from a learner perspective, and also to ensure the credibility stays intact from a provider perspective. That's the role of emerging technologies.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh. That was really, really insightful. I will come back to you with a couple of questions in my round two,
Absolutely.
which has just
Happy to.
cropped up in my mind. And I would want Ms. Rose now to put some light on PARC, which is an important assessment center with NEP 2020.
Thank you, ma'am. And parents, as you are listening, like Rajesh sir has used the word Parak. So many of may not be aware of it. I'll just give you insight of what is Parak. Today, I would like to give you an insight into Parak, a framework and a new assessment regulator, which will assess students at secondary and higher secondary levels. This is assessment regulator is being established to maintain uniformity among the state and central boards. And Parak is a part of National Education Policy 2020. And our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has announced the establishment of a National Assessment Center in Parak with an aim of removing disparities in scores of students enrolled in different state boards, which envisaged a standard-setting body to advise school boards regarding assessment patterns and latest research, promote collaborations between them. And Parak is actually an acronym which stands for Performance Assessment, Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development. Parak was launched under the New Education Policy 2020, and the main objective of this initiative is to create a new and interesting ecosystem in India regarding education. As per the expectations of the National Council of Educational Research and Training, that is NCRT, and State Council of Educational Research and Training, SCRT, this initiative will end all the worst educational practices. And Parak will monitor, learn, and assess all recognized school boards in India and is going to facilitate best practices in educational institutions and guarantees the consistency of academic expectations. And the main objective of Parak is to promote learning instead of mugging up and seeking industry-oriented knowledge for a better future to maintain a lower burden on students. And what are the benefits of Parak? Like Parak, firstly, it will put an end to rote learning. It will help students to learn in new and creative ways instead of mugging up everything only for exams. Secondly, it will lay emphasis on practical knowledge. The traditional way of learning and studying will also be changed. Students will be provided technical education, skills-oriented education, and practical knowledge. Third, industry-related education. It is an approach to teaching students subjects regarding industries such as math, science, and other technological education. Finally, less burden on students. It is proposed to conduct the board exams twice a year so that the students can improve their scores by practicing more, and stated that the dual exam policy will lighten the burden on the students. Thus, I conclude that Parak will act as a top body for setting norms, standards, and guidelines for student assessment and evaluation for school education boards, and will eventually become the national single window source for all assessment related information and expertise, with a mandate to support learning assessment in all forms, both nationally and where applicable internationally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose. That also brings us to a question that can Parak be an assessment regulatory across the boards? And will it be able to address the learning gaps, especially post-COVID and those 2 years of learning gap, which has widened in our learners? We'll come back to these questions in round 2. After this, I move your attention now to Mr. Arpit. Arpit has been head of business for Next Education, and he himself is an author and an acclaimed author and a co-founder of Practice Guru. Arpit, I would want you to share some insights on ethical practices in assessments and how can actually technology help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hema ma'am, for organizing this wonderful panel discussion. And I believe it's really going to give us great insights about how technology is transforming the assessment system and what kind of challenges and risk mitigation we expect from technology. So before jumping onto the ethical practices and issues that technology can mitigate or with which it can increase I would just like to go a little bit backward and talk about what has been done previous to COVID and post-COVID, and how COVID in a way became blessing in disguise for the education industry. So something which was supposed to happen by 2030, I think all the educational institutions, they advanced by 7 to 8 years and then started to know about how technology can actually transform. So previous to COVID, we were in an experimental mode. Can technology drive the assessments? And we had multiple questions around it, both on its usage as well as ethical issues around it, security issues around it. But as and when COVID happened, at least the education ecosystems, they got exposed to what kind of tools can be used, how beautifully can they be used and integrated within the system. So in the last 4 years of working in the edtech space in Middle East, in Africa, in other parts of the world, and in India, what we have realized is that school ecosystems have tried and experimented various methods, and multiple use cases have come out in terms of ethicality of doing assessments using technology. Now, I think all the speakers mentioned about a tool called ChatGPT. Now, just to start with from here, and then I'll just retract it back to where it all started. Now, with these AI tools, controlling plagiarism is becoming an issue. Now, that's an ethical issue. All the copy-paste activities which can happen over a system requires a lot of technical interference to monitor, control, supervise, audit, and guide. So that requires a deeper level of intervention and understanding. Now, the challenge that I see in assessment systems management and mitigating these ethical issues is the understanding of the stakeholders, the senior leadership of the school in terms of technology. So technology is not just limited to ICT or some software tools. Now it has gone much deeper, and all the cyber security, the data encryptions, the control access points needs to be taken well. We should be well aware of that and should become a part of the curriculum understanding itself. Ethical issues on cheating or cyber safety compliances do come at a later stage. But what as educators we need to bring into the system is right from the early ages, the right use and misuse should be taught in the curriculum. Very often students have been, or for that matter, we had been copying images from Google to prepare our slides, let's say. Now those images might be copyrighted or licensed ones, but we are doing just out of no concern around it, because we were never taught in that way, right? We are copying some videos, we are copying some images, we are copying some text, so that has become a part of a lifestyle. Now what happens is, if I'm going to ask a child not to do it, child will not digest it immediately, because this information is available for free. Now, when all of this knowledge and information is for free, why not to use it? Comes the first question in mind. The second question that we have also seen in children is that when we have ready-made material available on a particular question asked or a situation given, why do we need to use our brain to re-engineer it? Because some solution has already been provided with all the right measures and understanding and gaps filled. So what is the use of doing it? And then they end up doing the malpractices while doing the assessments. That okay, let's do a copy paste, and then they try all the methods, whichever technology you may try to block them. They will have certain methods to overpass it and then bring in some inputs which are not generated by themselves. So in terms of ethicality, I believe there are 3 major areas where we need to concentrate at. One comes in from the stakeholders, the educators, the band within a school, wherein educators, first they themselves understand what are these issues, what are these cyber security challenges, what are these malpractices, what are these plagiarism issues that we need to deal with first while we are communicating it with our students. The second is the parents community. So couple of parents awareness sessions must be done, because today cybersecurity issues may not be that serious, but this generation, when they are going to be in their professions, it's going to be far more serious than what we have it today. So if I have to compare the situation 20 years back, and as Mr. Rajesh was talking about blockchain technology, to track back the credentials of a particular document, now we have started to reach to that stage. 20 years back, nobody even cared about, even there was no idea in discussion in place. Copying was as normal as anything. But now plagiarism is becoming an issue. So now plagiarism has got cyber, laws, different laws across the different countries, and we never know how will a child or educator end up in a soup of not following the norms, right? So this has to become a part of the curriculum. So I believe the parents' awareness along with this is very much required, so that right from the early age interventions, parents also guide their children as well as they follow the right track. Third is when it comes on to the students, wherein we include all the ways and methods to create that awareness of what cyber safety is. What are those policies that you should be aware of. Very interestingly, Hema ma'am, what I've seen is in many schools, you have let's say a password protection policy or an e-safety policy or a framework, but that's limited to a document. If you actually enter inside a school campus and you ask any stakeholder for that matter, what's the password protection policy of your school and what do you do around it? I don't think anyone answers that. So people do say, some leadership team may say that, yeah, we have read it once, we created it once. Then what happened? IT guy may add some more on top of it. But when it comes to students, parents, teachers, I think it just dilutes. So ethical issues around these three. Now, primarily, I think when the assessments have to happen and when they have to happen using the tools, digital tools, very strict browsing mechanisms have to be there from the software providers, companies like us who are in this space. We are very cautious, and we need to be very cautious in terms of the usage of the assessment platform, because you need to provide all the features wherein a child is not able to do a malpractice. If the child is able to do that, at least the system is capturing those evidences. The system throws those results for the educator to understand what's happening around. And that's the way forward about this. Yeah. So that was my take on, the ethical issues with assessments.
That was really nice, Arpit. Like one of my students always said, teaching, learning, and assessments are like the samosa and chutney. Okay, they go hand in hand, right? While we have discussed a lot of things about the tools, emerging technologies, ethical practices, and the way forward, how it was post and pre-pandemic, right? I would now move the attention of the audience to Mr. Charan, who is the founder of CMAX.com, a student discovery platform. And I want you, Charan, to share your thoughts on how can technology actually support the data-driven decisions which a child can make about his career.
First of all, esteemed panel, and listening to everyone, I think the beautiful part in a panel when you speak last is always like you can always quote everyone and say, it was a great input from everyone, and we can always take a break there. But very relevant topic in the last 1 week. Like I've been encountering this in a couple of pitches too, very surprisingly. Been part of a couple of angel networks. I was listening to a very specific, interesting case which I wanted to bring before the panel and everyone. I came across an AI platform which will analyze answer sheets in the descriptive answer sheets, and where it reads every handwriting, and even if he does a spelling mistake, it will tell a spell check. Apart from that, it will tell which student has answered which topic and which question has been an issue, and what was the length of the question, what were the words which he used, and whatnot. I'm talking about an implementation of an assessment in a descriptive assessment. And this startup was pitching to us, and it has built a prototype, and it is according to the NCERT standards from 1st to 12th standard. Just imagine how much data that a teacher gets and the amount of time a teacher saves through that. I always felt any data-driven decisions which is helping a teacher to have a better conversation with student and have a one-to-one conversation, not replacing a teacher, is always a better edtech tool rather than telling anything, because creating videos is not edtech is always, I felt, that has been a over abused word, where a lot of video content production companies have become edtech rather than really solving a problem or helping save a time. Second point, which I wanted to tell about the data-driven decisions, because today I asked a very particular question, something related to creative writing, because as we go forward, how many tools can come where it can judge someone's creativity? Where there is a question which is asked that if you are a brinjal, what will you do? Just imagine if you are a brinjal, write an essay about it. No tool can talk about it except a teacher who is assessing it and understanding the person's mindset behind it. It is not a right answer. It is an answer. There is nothing called right answer or a wrong answer to a creative writing. Which data can tell or assess it in a proper way? And as esteemed teachers from decades of who bring the decades of experience, I feel today's tools where in the assessments should save a lot of time for teachers. My father is a teacher who always keeps saying he's a retired government school principal and he's been a teacher all through his life. He was always telling me very few things. At least private school teachers have that benefit, but he was always mentioning me. My time used to go away in paper corrections, which is very unproductive. Number two, it is better that I talk to a lot of students and maintain, that counseling rapport, which is more like a caretaker, which is more beneficial. Number three, he always used to tell, they used to send us for all the odd duties like election duties and everything, which are the more than teaching. A teacher is expected to do everything except teaching. So how much data you can collect when you have tools which will tell a behavior of a student or the person of a student. There's like computer vision documents which are there. These days when I go to schools, I see CC cameras being used for attendance. There are there are schools where cameras are there everywhere. How can we create a computer imaging solution saying that if a kid is dull, if a kid is not smiling, how can we give special attention to that kid? If a kid is, because you cannot always have eyes on everywhere. So there might be a situation where a kid is not at all talking or conversing with people. He might have some issue back home. How can you assess him? Because assessment is not just exams. Assessment is beyond a lot of things. It is not just writing in a question paper and grading him. Assessment is about the 360-degree evaluation of a kid. Where does those tools like this computer vision tools can help? If a kid is not smiling, if a kid has a frown smile, and if there are 10 images saying that, it means that there is a problem there. And how can the dashboard give a notification to a kid? How beautiful it is. So these are the data which will help a teacher to give that personalized attention when you are handling a class of 30s and 40s, where you can always give more stress on the right things rather than just leaving them with the stress with themselves. So these are the couple of suggestions which I wanted to submit before this panel and the audience. And there's a huge scope, and technocrats like Rajesh, whom I look up to, people like them should bring some solutions, and we can be a product guys or enablers to take this to the masses as such. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Charan. I think of late, each of the speaker here has put up some lovely posts and blogs on the same lines, where we bring in more creativity and emotions, right, versus chat GPT. And I've read each one of your blogs as well, which is quite insightful. And here I would also like to share something. It was a couple of years ago. I was in grade 2, if I'm not wrong, and we were just talking about the importance of reading news. and newspaper, the print media, right? And then one of the child tells me, right, oh, I have Alexa, and I ask, and she tells me, right? So that was quite interesting, right? As a teacher, where I'm emphasizing the importance of reading a paper, which we all grew up with, right? The importance of print media and how you should read, right? And a child quite quickly retorts saying, I don't have to read. I can ask and I get an answer. You want the answer? I have it with me, right? That is what technology
Well,
is all about. However, right, like you said, answers everything is right, and we stress on the most important ones at this point of time. Yes, Charan, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to add a point here. Maybe I'll take my round 2 here itself. So that one role yesterday, I was just one of my friend. I was talking because I handle a lot of undergrad students on a day-to-day basis. There was a new role which was created as prompt engineer, and they need people who ask right questions, because a lot of AI tools, they need an engineer who creates right prompts, so that the prompting is more important. So one big thing which I wanted to leave the panel with, like, one point, or the teachers who are listening to it, the art of asking question will become more important than answering a question, because the information is there. It is about asking right questions will be the most important quality which should be assessed.
You muted yourself, sorry. Yes. Yeah, the last one, just you got yourself muted. Would you want to repeat that?
I said the art of asking question is the most important thing. That's from my side. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Andrew sir, I will again come back to you with a very relevant question that what are the challenges that schools face in implementing technology-enabled assessments, according to you? What do you think? How can these challenges be addressed to ensure that there is effective implementation in the classrooms?
Yeah, so actually, for want of time, there's a long list actually, and we all have experienced it as principals and school heads. But I would probably chunk it down to two major points which I have experienced over these years. One I have experienced, one not so much. The major one, of course, is limited access to technology and infrastructure. Many times what we see is the big international schools, the very tech-savvy schools in big cities where technology is all there, but we're not really using it. That's level 2. But the technology is there. But what we forget is there are almost 80% of schools in the rural areas where technology infrastructure has still not reached to that level. So that's one major problem when we look at the big picture. And for that, there has to be a little bit of a structure by the school, by the organization as such, where there are funds diverted towards technology and technology-enabled education. The infrastructure is given. So one is that, but the bigger one that I feel and I have experienced, especially during pandemic, was, and this was school-wide, no matter what kind of school it was, in fact, more in the international schools, because during my time during pandemic, I was training schools, I was training teachers, and trust me, I was training more teachers from international schools in all the top big cities, not really the small schools, because they were the ones who could find me as a Google certified trainer on the trainer website. So the second one is the lack of training for teachers how to use that technology. So the technology is there. There is an overload of technology, in fact, now. But what happens is there's that gap where teachers do not know how to use technology. We don't give them that professional development. We do not give them that time to try out that technology, to learn that technology, or to try and work on it. So that is a big kind of a disadvantage. And that is where, again, pandemic forced schools to get the teachers to start using it and to be trained in it. And that's why we had so many schools reaching out to people to train them in things like Google Meet, Google Classroom, simple things now. Actually, when we go back and we realize that these are all now simple things which are maybe on the tips of the teachers. But there was a time when we didn't know how to use Google Meet or Google Classroom. So a lot of times schools need to invest on their teacher training program, the professional development program, and which is many times missed out. So that is one area which I would really ask school heads, school owners, directors to invest in. Give your teachers that time so that they can try out things on their own, encourage them to do these things. And these are all simple tools. Many of them are already freely available, so you don't really have to pay also. A lot of it is now available online as webinars, so from where you can just learn. So these are the two main, I would bring it down to these two main points. Yeah.
Right, sir. While we have the CBSE board emphasizing on 15 mandatory hours of training for teachers, and like all of the panel members has emphasized that learning should be fun. And we want to bring in that fun element for teachers too, because we are constantly learning, constantly upgrading ourselves so that we teach the children the right way. And I would ask Rajesh now for that one question which was on my mind while you were talking, that using emerging technologies with the right intent. So would you tell us how can an institute develop an entrepreneurial ecosystem right from the school level, and also prioritize women in the field of technology? Because as we all know, I think the average is about 28% of women in field of technology, and it is definitely increasing, but we want it more.
Yeah, sure. Most certainly. The answer is you have to look around in your school and see what kind of facilities that are there, right? It is quite common that the school has a playground, the school has a library, and probably one or two computers. But is there a tech Vyamshala? Like I recently, when the government had consulted me, I had mentioned to the government saying, you have Hanuman Vyamshala in every nook and corner of the country. Do you have tech Vyamshala so that people can go in, walk in, and learn tech? The answer is no. To my earlier point, it's all here now. Access becomes more important. Intent is there. The access for students is not there, and we are talking about not just the premium set of students, the students who come from the have category, right? We are talking about very humble schools at the smallest operating unit of the village, and we are talking about the students who do not have. For instance, there's this organization that I got exposed to in United States about 10 years ago, an organization called Girls Can Code. And when I went and spoke with the founder, saying that, what is your mission? She said only one thing. Earlier, when you were educated, you can come out of misery. But in today's world, it's not just enough to be educated. You should also know how to code. And code can solve a lot of miseries for people in different parts of the world. And they specialized on girls in particular countries for obvious reasons. I don't have to delve into that. And then they took this coding to the girls, where they kind of broken the model, where they said that you don't have to have 12 years of compulsory education to code. If you have basic intelligence and you know how to write that particular code, all that you need to do is walk into our center, learn coding, and many of those girls have turned out into gifted coders and gifted IT professionals, and there's very good success stories over there. So can schools enable like that? A student wants to learn something, he or she will walk into a library. In a similar fashion, student wants to build something. Is there a foundry? Is there a garage? Is there a skunk works kind of a facility where the student can come at any point of time over the weekend, and then they can go to the playground and then practice cricket or any game? And likewise, can we create that kind of an infrastructure at schools, which is not only open to the students, but at large, the kids in that particular community? It is going to bring in a lot of revolution. And these are some of the things, the onus of doing doing that lies on us. And if we are able to do that, will be able to, give a lot of independence, economic independence, and also independence to the girls that you alluded to, Hema.
Very nice. You actually read my thoughts. Recently, we had a presentation at DPS Nacharam where lot of students participated in pitching their ideas, business ideas, and we were thinking at Gandipet, why don't we have something like that? Like you said, the Vyayam Shala or a corner where every week interested children can just catch up, brainstorm, share ideas, and come up with something very
Absolutely.
brilliant. It might be very naive, but yet they will have the right mentors, the teachers who can guide them. And with all the industry support here, like people like you and the other panelists, I think we can be able to bring out great talent, which is there in all our schools, but yet to be explored. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, more than happy to. I
May
think
I-
it's time to rewrite the old age adage, don't give fish, teach the people fishing. Now I
Fishing.
think it should be,
Yes.
don't give them the code, teach them how to code.
Perfect, perfect.
May I,
Wonderful.
Hema ma'am?
Yes, Ms. Rose,
This
please
is
go
for
ahead.
Radhavan sir. Sir was talking about diversity and inclusivity. So how can technology be used to create more inclusive assessment environments
Okay.
that support diverse learners? And what role can technology play in creating assessments that are more engaging and interactive for students?
Okay. The first thing is we need to understand how different sets of people learn. Okay. Somebody learns by reading, somebody learns by listening to somebody else, and somebody learns by doing. Okay. And somebody can focus only by moving around. Okay. By putting everybody under one roof, the restricting environment of a classroom where I'm supposed to sit and learn. Okay, I'm supposed to look at the teacher. Okay, now the blackboards have given way to digital boards. Still, you are looking at somebody. This is one too many kind of an instructional coaching, which is instructional teaching, which is happening. Technology can make teacher understand what is the style of that student in terms of learning. So you can always mix and match. Somebody said tons of YouTube videos available on various topics. So you can curate them through your own learning management systems. And like Rajesh said, there is a concept of Vyayam Shala, which is very well known in Japan as dojo, the practice school. So what kind of practice schools do we create? Okay, see, end of the day, none of us, I excelled in mathematics, physics, and I nearly scored a perfect 10, but I hardly use it. Today, what I do is I know somebody who is better than me in doing something. So how do I monetize it for the business? And if I have to go and do something good, so who is better than me in reaching out to a certain sections of the society in delivering certain services better than me? So it's about collaboration. It is about the critical thinking is about what is important. Okay, what is important to me, what is important to you, and what is important to somebody else are contextual. So the ability to understand what is the highest, okay, within the boundaries of a certain legality, ethicality, all that. So what is important, what needs to be solved, that is critical thinking. Technology can make people, the teachers understand the students better, and students will understand the choices available. So I don't have to go through the school in a linear fashion. While I'm learning physics and mathematics, I can explore arts and something else on the side without having to sacrifice on something else. Because end of the day, this is all coming together. The interdisciplinary part is not about maths interacting with physics and physics interacting with chemistry. It is about the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain coming together and creating a solution which helps a lot of people. Okay, and that's what matters when you are in a business, when you are transforming a business. And many of these students will be in business. Either they'll be working or they'll be creating value to the society. So what is that critical thinking that we are going to teach them? Or I would put it this way, learn along with them. Because many of the instructors, the teachers, the managers in business environment need to learn the emerging landscape to teach somebody else. So it's a kind of a co-learning rather than one-to-many.
Thank you, sir. May I request Mr. Arpit, just as a question for you. How different and unbiased is the question paper made by the teacher and the one made by using technology? Like we were talking about technology, so
That's
How un-
straight from a teacher's heart.
How unbiased or biased? All right, I think that's a very interesting question. And as far as technology is concerned, it has its own merits as well as aberrations, depending on what kind of tools are we using. We cannot completely bypass saying this, that technology will remove all the biases. Because even with technology, let's say a teacher is comfortable doing MCQ type of questions, because she knows with these kind of objective questions, my students will at least score well in my subject. So then the technology can be misused that way, that across the whole quarter or a term, I'm just giving those MCQ kind of questions and judging my students based on that. At the same time, when it is about differentiated instructions to the differentiated learners, technology at one hand enables a teacher to provide different set of questions to different students, and at just some clicks away. But at the same time gives also certain opportunities for teachers to create certain biases. So when we say using technology, how do we curb or mitigate these challenges of biases? I think the right tools coming in place and using them in apt way makes the difference, the total difference. Now, in the assessments, actually, personally, I would, focus more on personalized assessments because each child, as all the esteemed panel members have been focusing, that there has to be, all children cannot be, as Raghavan sir was saying, they cannot be brought under one roof and tested on one particular element. It cannot be judged that way. So the more personalized an assessment goes, better opportunity it creates for teacher to understand where the child is moving ahead. Now, in terms of that, adaptiveness and personalization in assessments is one tool that school education systems should be looking at, wherein there is no manual intervention of any teacher for that matter. You are interacting with the machine, and machine is judging you based on the algorithms brought in place and is giving you and throwing you the next opportunities to answer. So that is a continual assessment process which should happen across. Now, this particular process reduces all the biases. Then comes the one which plays a little bit of culprit role here, which are those static assessments, wherein as a teacher, I create a set of questions and I give it to the students depending on what I feel for them. Now, here, since there is a manual intervention involved, 100% unbiased assessment cannot be done, whatever said and done for technology till now. Yes, EdTech players are tracking the data set, data points, understanding the natural language. We do the NLP algorithms. We involve a lot of AI to understand what kind of questions have been creating, what trends are you following, which kind of questions are being answered by your students, what strategies are you repeating then and again. Using all of them, we are at least able to understand the trend of a particular teacher in terms of doing the assessments. But again, that has got a limitation with certain tools and different geographies and different dynamics. So personalized adaptive assessment is one take which can remove this biasness completely. And in static assessments, I think more creative tools, when they are brought in, will mitigate this risk.
I have one question for Mr. Sricharan. Sir, you spoke so well on the AI platform, and the beautiful part that was spoken about was creative writing. But can technology play a crucial role in helping students identify the right fit for a career course? Sricharan, sir?
I think anybody in the panel can also take it up. Yes, there's a Rich. This is open. Yes, Raghavan. Yes, please go ahead.
My take from the industry is The schools have to play a proactive role in, first of all, making it aware to the students that what is required by the industry, and then also provide what can be provided within the curriculum, but enable this to be explored by the students themselves through various means. Okay, so this is where this concept of practice schools will be extremely useful. Then the entrepreneurial part of it is, I mean, not all are going to go for a career which is only a job. So if people are interested in being entrepreneurial, are there entrepreneurial ventures that can be allowed within the school? And do we teach what should be the optimal relationship with money? Okay, so should we be going after money, and do we know how to manage money? Okay, monetary management is not just about learning about finances and accounting. It is more than that. There is a philosophy and practice behind it, and there is a bit of a cultural element that comes into it. And an individual needs to take a decision at every step of the way while you are earning or while you are spending, or when you decide not to earn, when you decide to say no to a career option. So there are interplay of money and various other things. So do we really enable children even through some simulations? Are we allowing them to do that? Like, for example, if the game of Monopoly can be converted into something which is exciting for students to understand the making and losing of money and
Yes.
the relationship with money, I think that will be a great starting point.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you, sir. We can see if some very beautiful questions on the chat box.
Yeah.
If I may be allowed to take one for our panel members.
Yes, ma'am.
The formative methods of assessments using 21st century skills we used and use in classroom space. I'm sorry, something happened there.
Yeah, someone closed. Yeah, it's open.
Yeah, somebody closed it.
It's open now, Minu. It's open now. You can.
It's open, ma'am. You can read now.
No, actually, no.
Wait, so it says, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
The formative methods of assessment using 21st century skills we used and use in the classroom space is not really getting translated to CBSE examinations, whereas an international boards are able to adapt it. So all this at class level or school level is irrelevant until the board recognizes it and finally takes it up as a summative assessment. Here we are discussing, is NAP addressing it? I would want Arpit, maybe if he can take this question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with this NEP coming in picture, this gets addressed. NEP opens up those opportunities wherein more objectivity and more formative style of assessments can be conducted across, and a lot of variety can be brought into it. So it increases the objectivity. It's talking about the efficiency. It's talking about customizing these assessments, about the accessibility. So all in all, I think NEP is a fantastic opportunity for us as a country to seriously look into it and work around our assessment policies within the schools. Yeah.
There's one more question from a student, Arushi Chakrabarti. As we are progressing into a technological era, so is it a possibility that it will overpower the traditional method of teaching and learning? Any member can take it up.
Any panel member can answer it very, passionately. I would just like to add here. See, it's never a comparison between the traditional methods, conventional methods, and the new age methods coming in. It's about moving with the contemporary things which are there. And I was reading a quote. Somebody said, "Technology is happening. Accept it." Right now, how well do we use it? How aptly we use it makes all the difference. Because Instagram can be used for scrolling purposes. And you can spend, like, I was actually reading a figure, on an average in India, a child less than 18 years of age is spending 1.6, which is close to around 98 to 100 minutes on Instagram scrolling.
Browsing.
Now, yeah, that browsing. Now, if you do that, definitely, we cannot even bring that on a platform to discuss. But when you're using the technology right, it makes all the difference. So it's not going to overpower or overshadow the traditional methods. but it's going to supplement and complement them in terms of delivering them in more effective way.
It's a continuum. I think instructional teaching will remain because it needs to work in a certain age groups, and a collaborative teaching and learning will happen more. Technology will play a role of integrating all this together in a seamless fashion. So technology is not going to go away, and don't worry, dear student, teachers are not going to go away. They're all going to coexist, and how well we all coexist is something very, very important.
Yeah, there's one more question. I don't know the participant. It's given as anonymous participant. With the advent of AI and ML, the repetitive jobs are being cut down and will become extinct. How can the students be made future ready to mitigate this? Is the school working for these future ready kids?
Oh, I think this is one question which everybody is talking of. Will there be employability?
Can I
yes,
probably
I
please.
have a quick
Yes.
take on this. See, there are certain things which are not going to go away. Okay, as a man, I can tell you these buttons. This way, have been around for more than 300 years. This has not changed. Unless you are a left-hander, it's the other way around. Otherwise, normally it is this way. What will not go away is the human interactions. Okay, and in many jobs, the human interactions will remain. And therefore, the ability to collaborate with another human being, also with machines, will have to be enhanced. So AI and ML is not going to take that away. Critical thinking. Somebody told very nicely that there is a prompt engineer who is required.
Charan has just a...
Yes, that's right. So that means even for AI to kind of go to the next level, there are jobs which will be there. And what are the repetitive jobs today? The repetitive jobs are mostly today done by computers anyway. And at least from an industry point of view, most of the things which have been automated, not because we want to reduce manpower, because we want to reduce the human fatigue. Okay, there is a physical repetitive job in the factory floor is best done by a robo, not because we are eliminating a human being, because a human being can think and do something else. Still, the robots are improved by the human beings. Okay, so I don't think it's going to go away in a jiffy. It's going to remain, but some very, very mundane tasks are going to get modified. It's not going away, and some more higher level tasks are going to get created. And this is a kind of a cycle. Okay, when the automobile engine came up, the horse wagons went away. That was the technology. Okay, so from the technology keeps improving, and it is likely to reduce the human fatigue less and less, rather than making humans irrelevant. And I don't think we are anywhere near robots controlling our lives.
Can I just add on something interesting over there, carrying forward from here? Is I was just asking the other day someone, a close friend, have you tried ChatGPT? And the response I got was, yeah, it's just similar to Wikipedia. So I was a bit surprised. And now I realize that coming back to prompt engineering is basically what is ChatGPT? Asking the right questions. Probably that person was just asking a one-liner. Whereas we have to now train our children to not just answer the right questions, but ask the right questions. That is more important. And automatically, prompt engineering is now actually a profession. So you have to learn how to ask the right questions, frame the right questions, and put that across. So that is also where our teaching and learning is going to change a bit, where our assessments are going to change a bit, and leading on to this.
Yeah,
and sir, if I may add here, I think ChatGPT has data only till 2021. So it very candidly accepts that, you know, you ask a question, it says, I can only answer till 21, and the rest is left to you to explore. So that's where I think we humans are much more advanced than anything.
And one more thing is, Hema, that what Mr. Nelson mentioned about is, you're going back to the future. Asking the right question is the Socratic way of teaching and learning. Socrates never taught anything. He asked questions. And he found that the value of asking the right questions is far more instructional, because it kind of makes the other person think. And it also makes the person asking the question to think, because you need to be asking the right question next. right? So that way, I think we are going back to the future.
So as we are getting towards the end of our time, and we have the audience online, we have people from all forums and all ways of education. We do have teachers and principals, we have technology folks, policymakers, and our stakeholders. Anyone last advice or invitation or any idea that you would like to leave them with? Any of you, please.
I have one last final take because I need to sign off as well. The policy is about three things. One is about the political part of it. So make it implementable so that some use comes out of it. Okay. The second part is about the litigation. Avoid litigations. Make it as inclusive as possible, and then be it customer oriented. Okay. If that is done, okay, any policy implementation can be done very easily in this country. And as diverse we are as litigious we are as well. So therefore, the policy implementation is more about implementation, not about policy. So that's my take on the implementation part of it. And with that, I will have to sign off. I have another meeting. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would quickly conclude. I really thank all our panel members here. Many thanks to all the speakers. If I may be allowed to put up a few points so that it comes as a closure, I thank Andrew sir for all his insights in the various tools, adapted tools by the various schools around India. Mr. Raghavan sir, you very nicely talked about the main phrase which I picked up, educate to learn. And coming to Griselda ma'am, those insights were really helpful for us when you spoke about Parak and what it entails, what are the goals and objectives. So we are really looking forward to having a new and interesting educational ecosystem around us. Thank you, Mr. Arpit, for giving us an insight into the ethical issues in assessment systems, the right use and misuse that should be taught in the curriculum. Cybersecurity also to be a part of the curriculum. I would also like to thank Mr. Rajesh for his wonderful insights on the intent towards the students. I mean, everything is in place, technology, assessment, things are in place, but do we have an intent? Very beautifully asked question. And also the need to bring up gamification in learning. Another point to ponder on is the password protection policy, which you picked up. I think, ma'am, we will definitely look into it in our school, especially to start on with where we are living today. And thank you, Mr. Sri Charan, for bringing up the insights into the AI platform to analyze the answer scripts. That was really beautiful when you spoke about how many tools do we have in place when we look for a creative writing session from the students, and how do we analyze them? Not every tool can do that. So, and another point which caught my attention was tools for analyzing the behavior of the student. That's very beautiful point. So the teachers can never be replaced. We get that assurance as teachers. We are very happy to know that. Bringing this to an end, I would like to give my thanks, my heartfelt gratitude to all the members here. I would also like to thank all those people around us who had planned this event and supported this event. Your hard work is very much appreciated. This Common Union is just a kickoff to a series of events and activities that the organization will be hosting and taking up in future. Please take care, stay well, stay safe. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you,
dear parents and students. Thank you so much.
Can we leave, ma'am, now? Ma'am, you are muted.